there you go.
Is that better?
Yep, there you go.
All right, let us be in prayer. Eternal God, into your presence we come with much joy and thanksgiving in heart and mind. We thank you for, first of all, this opportunity that you provided us to come together and to celebrate Dr. Sneed and to celebrate the accomplishment of writing this very vital and necessary work. We pray now your blessings upon this gathering, and may we continue to be lifted by each other as we discuss this book and as we discuss experiences of our own and the experiences of others. Bless us now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, it's good to see everybody. I'm seeing faces I haven't seen in a while, which is always very exciting. And I know other people will be joining us as we proceed. So what I want to do before we get into anything else, some of you are very familiar with Zoom and all that it has to offer, but I really want this evening to be as interactive as we can get. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to make sure you know how to work all the tools available to you because you may need them this evening. So let's start with everybody unmute yourselves and say hello.
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 Hey.
Jay.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Did anybody not unmute? I see a couple people that didn't. I don't know if that's, you're not forced to, obviously. I cannot pressure anyone to do anything.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So everybody has found their mic button, right? Because there may be a time tonight where you will want to use that mic button to say something. Most of the time, you're going to be muted because there are a lot of us, and I don't want anybody to miss anything with everybody talking. So we're going to make sure everybody knew how to use their mute button. I mean, yes, their mic button. Secondly, somewhere on your screen, there is a button that says reactions. If you're on probably a laptop or a tablet, it's probably at the bottom somewhere if you touch your screen. But see if you can find your reactions button. And if you hit that button, you'll see a number of different emoticons or that express things. So, oh, I see Shauna has found hers. Everybody send me some sort of, how you feeling right now? Show me with your emoticons. Let's see your screens light up. Look at that. I see a hand, a heart. All right, a little happy laugh going on over here. I love it. Surprise going on. Yep, yep. Excellent. So you see all those different emoticons. There's mine. I love you. I love you all. You see all of those. If you hear something tonight that you like, use your emoticons and spark up your screen. Something that you think was funny, send one of those up so everybody knows how you're feeling. So that's your expression. Now, let's see if everyone can find their chat button. Find your chat button and send a hello to everyone. Because during the night, you may want to ask a question or have something to say. I'll be manning or personing the chat, and hopefully we'll respond to everything that comes up in there. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Can everybody see what's going on in the chat? Nod your head or give me a thumbs up, rather, if you can see what's going on in the chat with your, Scott, with your reactions, please, not your real thumb. We want to see that little, there you go, your thumbs up reaction, if you can see what's going on in the chat. Looking good, excellent. All right. All right, I want this to be an interactive evening to the degree we can. But when you're not speaking, please mute yourself so that if something's happening around you, it doesn't interfere with everybody hearing everything. So this is great. All right, we got that out of the way. I know everybody can do everything. Oh, there's one more thing. If you want to make a statement, you can also raise your hand. You find your, I don't know, it's different places on different systems. So in some people, if you go to participants, you'll see something that says raise your hand. Sometimes you have to click more.
Yes.
If you find your raise your hand, and you'll see a little hand there that can come up on your window. Find your raise your hand so that when that happens, I'll see it and know that there's something you want to tell us. see if I can find mine so I don't get one because I'm the host. So if you find your raise your hand, let's see. I see Scott. Very good. Scott got his hand up. Deacon Deborah's got her hand up. Oh, I see all kinds of hands up now. Monique, and Reverend Sean. I see Ella Marie. All right. So these are the things we want to use tonight. And yes, you will have time to actually talk, but we want to make sure you know how you can express yourself if you're not talking. So I'm trying to see if everybody on here knows who I am. Do I need to go through that introduction thing? It doesn't look like it. So I'm not. I'm Jennifer Sneed. People call me Dr. J around here. I think most of you know that. So welcome. Here we go. Let me get the commercial stuff out of the way first. How's that? Let's talk about where you get the book. Raise your hand if you've already gotten the book. Wait. Didn't we just learn about raising your hand? Did we just not go through that? Raise your emoticon hand.
Over here.
Hey. Some people are working on it. So if you haven't gotten a book or you want to tell somebody else where to get the book, it's on all the major online book retailers. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Walmart. And you can get them from my website, which I'll show you before we get off tonight, drjsneed.com. I have a few, if anybody's local and wants a copy, I have a few here and we can make arrangements to get one to you. So if you, oh, very good, Pastor. He got his little happy hand up. If you wanted to see the book launch, if you were unable to see it or see it a couple weeks ago, it is now posted on YouTube under the name of the book. It's on the Church Macedonia of Albany.org website. And it is also on my website. So you can go in and take a look at the book launch if you missed it. Okay. So I think that's all the little working stuff that we need to do. The only other thing I asked you guys, when you do have an opportunity, if you feel like it, please review the book, give it a rating anywhere, everywhere, on any of those sites. That would be much appreciated because, you know, the more we rate it, the more activity it gets. The more activity it gets, sooner we get to profits that go to Macedonia Baptist Church to support its programs and services. So just remember to try and rate it. All right. So tonight, you guys, here's the kind of the overview of where we want to go. In just a minute, I'm going to introduce my guests that are on this Zoom with me and with us tonight. We have some of the folks who contributed to the book. We have a special guest who is the designer of the book cover. Everybody keeps asking about him, and he has joined us tonight as well. And I just can't wait to do that. So we'll do that. Then we're going to go to a few questions that I have for you guys, where you can use all of these skills you just learned as we continue through the night. And we'll have questions and we'll have answers, hopefully. If you like, at some point, I will do a book reading. Then we can have more conversation after that and before we call it a night. So that's kind of the big picture of where we are. So let me do this. I want to welcome, especially my guests, people who are in the book. You can put your happy face icons on, but Jack Gibson has a chapter in the book. She's on. Deacon Deborah has a chapter in the book, and she is on. Pastor has a chapter in the book. He is on. Deacon Heritage, John Heritage has a chapter, as does Sister Sharon Lovelady Hall. Oh, and Pedro. Sorry, Pedro. Didn't mean to overlook you there. All of these folks are reflected, their stories are reflected in chapters in the book. So you'll have an opportunity to not only talk to me, but to also talk to them. All right, so let me see. I think, like I said, I think everyone here so far, except, and Wesley's in New York City. Everybody else is in the Albany area. I was going to say, is anybody from outside Albany? But right now, I don't think so.
Gretchen.
Okay.
Gretchen.
Oh, that's right. Gretchen, I'm so used to you being here. I forget you're really not here. Gretchen is over in Pennsylvania. She left us. I'm glad to see you, though.
Great to see you, sister.
Her book is
So raise your hands if you've read some of the book. Have you found a chapter that resonates with you? Anybody? There's one hand up. Excellent, excellent. All right, cool, way cool. So you guys, let me talk just a little bit about wrapping this whole book, Scarred but Unscathed, Growing in Faith. It's a book that really came out of, yes, my experiences, and the big car accident was a big part of that because it really made me stop. In fact, it forced me to stop, obviously, and I had lots of time to think about things. And it just came to me, so Dave, how do you get through these big things? How do you get through the little things such that when you come through, you're a whole person? So that's where the unscathed came from. Scarred but unscathed. You get physical scars, mental scars, emotional scars. We get all kinds of scars, but do they stop you? And that's really what I was trying to get at. And so various points in my life are reflected in the stories, in my stories in the book, as well as the other people who are on this Zoom. So now I'm going to say, let's open up and let's have some questions. And like I said, you can ask questions of me. You can ask questions of those who are in the book. And I should say before I start, I don't know if anyone whose story is in the book would like to make a statement about what people might find in their story before we go much deeper. So I open the floor to you guys. And these guys, by the way, were amazing. Um, it was quite a ride from the start of this project to actually putting this book out. I am overly, way over the moon thankful to each of them because they trusted me with very personal stories. And I don't take that lightly. But I think there are stories that will help other people. So back to, does anyone want to make a statement before we get into other questions? No?
Well, I'll make a quick statement, and that is that I didn't read through the whole book. I just skimmed a couple, pages here and there. But what I've realized is that we never really know how deep other people have been hurt, or the pain that other people have gone through, or the events that they've gone through, and how daunting and serious they are. You just think about your own. But it's interesting that as you read through other people's stories, they're incredible. They're incredible, and God bless us all, because we're all here.
Here, 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 here. So Wesley, I'm getting ready to pick on you, so unmute yourself. I don't want to get too deep into all of this before I let Wesley have a say, because people have asked about who did that incredible book cover. The young man that did it is on your screen, Wesley Hall. He's in New York City at the Brown Graham. Wesley, thank heaven, said he would work with me, and he did. I don't even know how he did it. Wesley, talk to us about how you arrived at the book cover.
Well, we had a conversation around what the subject matter of the book was, and where the stories, like your own personal story, and then also the fact that it was going to be pulling and you would be interviewing a bunch of other people, and it would be talking about their experiences and in what ways that helped their faith grow. And so I thought that it would be it's kind of nice to sort of have something that sort of represents all of the different things and components. And so there's a statue figure that's sort of like got some chips and wear and tear in it. And then there's this hand gesture of offering up something. And we talked about how water was like it's very traditionally sort of like interpreted as a cleansing sort of a thing, and in various different like religions and cultures, it's always considered a thing that like water is like a nice conduit, as it were, of like cleansing, right? And so I thought it would be nice to sort of like have something that was representative of almost like a statue that would be like offering up something to you, these stories, these like jewels of experiences, and sort of putting it all together in a packaging that looked kind of nice and was somewhat arresting and could get your attention. Like that was the plan. And we talked a lot about like things that you liked, the fact that you were prone to sort of natural things and nature and floral elements and things like that. And you just sort of mush all of those things together and see if you can come up with something that looks attractive and gets to the point of what the subject matter of the book is. And that's what we did. So.
Well, I like the mushing. I don't know.
My job is to mush. That's what my job is.
Yes, the mushing turned out very well. It's been well received by everyone who has seen that cover. The richness of the colors has been mentioned. The statue with the cracks in the face has been mentioned. So it has been well received on this part. I see somebody waving their hand about it now. That's right. Now is the time, people. You can use those little reaction things we were talking about. You hear something you like. But yeah. So Wesley is going to stay with us as long as he can, and he will also respond to any questions that other people might have about the design and the book cover. So now I'm going to flip back to questions that you might have about what you've read. I've got a few that I can throw out there that people might be interested in, but I'd rather not start with those. I'd rather start with your question. What questions do you have for me or for those who are reflected in the book? No, I know you do. You guys are not shy to speak.
So I have a question for you.
All right.
Which of the other folks' stories was the most powerful to you and why?
That's that. Why don't you just put me on the spot there, Gretchen? Because each of the stories contained things that were powerful. I think because all of us go through different experiences, and some are larger experiences, some are not, but they all count. So each of the stories contained something that really resonated with me as I heard them, and then trying to write in a way that would reflect what I heard, and keeping the authenticity of the person that I was interviewing. Does it make sense? Yeah, it was a bit tricky to do that. Each of the people we met at least 2 times, phone conversations, text, emails, all of the above over probably 2 years, I'm going to say. And when I would draft a chapter of the person, they would get a chance to read it. We talk about it. They tell me what seemed to work, what didn't, what changes would they like. So we kind of went back and forth for a bit to arrive at what you now can read. Good question. Other questions? So I have a question for those who are in the book, because we were so busy doing all the interviewing and stuff. One of the questions I had, what was it like sharing your experiences with me? And be honest, I can take it. I'm a big girl. What was it like sharing your stories with me? I didn't have that done because I was on the receiving end. But talk about that for a second. Go
Dr.
ahead, Sharon.
J. Sorry, my phone's ringing right when I start talking. I think it was real easy to share my story with you. And I didn't even know you, aside from seeing you in the choir and saying hi to you, but I felt really comfortable sharing my story with you. And I thank you for letting me share my story with you.
Thank you. Others, what about you? What was it like for you?
I echo Sharon. You made it very easy to share my story. And after sharing it, I recognized, wow, His grace and mercy came around multiple times for me. And it felt good to finally sum it all up and share that so that other folks can see that no matter what you go through, His grace and mercy will come through for you if you just, hold on to that faith. So I really appreciate the opportunity to listen to my story and to publish it so it can be shared amongst all.
Great. So I was just looking back. So Sharon's chapter is called In His Way, and Jack's chapter is, all right, Jack, I should know these by heart. That's not you. Help me out.
Here for a
I-
reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can remember either.
I mean, I see it
Here
here for a reason. That's Jack's
Reason.
chapter.
Yeah, and that
Um,
came from my grandfather. He used to say to me, "Jack, I'm here for a reason, not for a season," and that always stuck with me.
right, right. Others? What was it like for you? I see Deacon Heritage.
Yeah, I like everyone else before me. I thought, the interview was very easy, and it was. I don't know. You go through life and you forget things, but it was a reflection of when you think back of your life, your past life, and how things were, and what happened to you, and what you did, and it was a good experience.
Great, great. His chapter is called "But by God's Grace." Who has it? So I'm gonna pick on Pastor now because
I was just getting ready to unmute.
well, let me say this about Pastor's chapter. So Pastor was not one of the original volunteers, but as I interviewed people and began working, putting stories together, every story, every person at some point referred to Reverend Comethere. There was some aspect in their stories. And I thought, there's just no way you can have this book and not have a story from him. And so I thought he should be the final story in the book because everything else in the book, ultimately, there's some relationship to him. So I asked him, actually, my usual way, I followed him around one Sunday until he paid attention to me. And said, okay, yes. Well, he was fine. He said, yes, I would absolutely be willing to do that. So, Rev, what was that experience like for you? Oh, you're muted again.
All right. Well, let me first say, compliment your genius, Dr. J, because we had an opportunity to tell our story, but we didn't have an opportunity to put a title to it. And you did that. And I have to compliment you because you captured the story in a title that I could not have come up with. So that points to your your genius and your attentiveness to what you are hearing. So having said that, you kind of helped me particularly to reflect upon where I've been, and to reflect upon where I am in relationship to where I've been, if that makes sense. So that the understanding of where I am is clearer when I look at the story that I was telling, and particularly some of the experiences in my life, not understanding them then as much as I understand them now. And that was very, very, very helpful.
Right. In fact, you were the one, Pastor, that told me when we were interviewing that a person cannot determine the significance, the impact of some experience until later. They can't have that aha moment at the same time that the experience is going on. You told me that. He says, You're right. And Reverend's chapter is called Faith and Free Fall. Right.
Yes.
Right. Deacon Deb, I'm gonna pick on you. I haven't heard from you. You've been quiet. What was it like for you?
I had unmuted about the same time as you called on Pastor.
Oh, okay.
I found it easy to speak with you, but I think partly because, over the years I've grown to know you. I knew you state ed days, and had seen you and knew of you, that kind of thing. I think for me, the concern after speaking with you was more how it would look in print, what it would say. And did it say what I thought I was saying to you? which is always, not always the same. What comes out of your mouth and what other people hear, it's communication, but sometimes it's not always the same communication. But I was very pleased, very, very pleased. And I think that was the good part of this. Yeah.
And Deacon Deb's chapter is called Unwavering. So you'll have to read if you haven't. You can come back in a couple of weeks and we can talk more deeply about the chapters. By then, I know everybody will have read things. So that was one of the questions I had for you. You guys have questions for me? If not, I'm gonna ask you an even harder question.
Oh, so Jen, what led you to this project? What made you decide to do this?
I think when at the time when I had permission to present this project to the congregation, it was at both services. It was the Sunday after my birthday, and I said, time, there's more in back of me than there is in front of me, and it's been wandering around in my head for years. So when are you going to do it? Now. What? You got to do it now. You got to start on it. If you're going to do it, get busy. So between that and the experiences and trying to shape them in a way that I could share with people to kind of demonstrate how faith grew over the years through different things, that's what really propelled me to continue and get into it more deeply and figured out how to do it. Because I didn't know when I first started thinking about it, where else am I going to get these experiences? I didn't want a book just about me, because it's really not about me so much as using my life as an example, but I wanted more than just me. So figuring out that, there are people all around me. Everybody's got stories. Everybody's been through things. So that kind of propelled me on too. And I kind of built on that. Good question. Other questions
Can I ask, how did you pick the title?
of the book?
Yes.
It's funny. I had several different titles as I was working through things, and I don't know what it was. One day, I don't even remember what I was doing, but it just popped into my head because I thought, whoa, wait, I got all kinds of scars. I got all kinds of physical scars. I've had emotional scars. I know, I've had spiritual things you've dealt with. But I said, wow, but I'm okay. Oh, scarred, but unscathed. And then in one of our sessions with my good friend, Dr. Gretchel there, she said, you need a second part. She's very direct like that. You need a second part to that. That's not enough by itself. Put something with it. I was like, okay, let me come up with something. And she worked with me on coming up with growing in faith. Because she said, that's what the stories are. You grew in faith over all those years. I said, you're right. She's pushy like that, I'm going to tell you. But yeah, that's where that came from, scarred but unscathed, growing in faith. It grows over time. One of the things I found out too, in doing the research and looking at faith, and there's so much literature on faith. I tried to put in the citations you see on the pages where all those things came from. So if you want to pursue something, you'll know where to find it. But I think we think about faith, we talk about faith a lot. One of the things that I think, I don't know if it surprised me, I guess it brought it to the forefront, is we don't often think about faith in children, that children have a certain kind of faith that only a child can have. And their faith is not necessarily all the things they've been through, but it is their life, who's in their life, how those people view the world, how they deal with issues. So the faith of a 5-year-old is very different from the faith of a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, etc. But so it's interesting. Faith it's got so much to it. And I think I just got even more immersed in thinking about faith, what it is, how you build it, what does it do, what does it look like, as I continue working and interviewing and drafting. Others? So this is a question I kind of put down for myself and thinking somebody might want to know. If not, you can tell me to stop talking and I will. The question I thought about was, what surprised me as I went through this writing process? Um, so I think we all know that most of us don't remember our lives in chronological order. Like you can kind of start and say, well, at 5, I know I went to this school. And then at 8, I was in 3rd grade. But when you get to telling stories after you've been around a while, you have a lot of stories. And you don't necessarily remember them. Okay, in 1992 was this, and 84 was this. So what surprised me was with all of the stories that people were sharing with me as they came out, my first interviews in the early days, I thought, all right, they're going to give me these stories and I just kind of compile them and put them all together. Well, that doesn't work because on one interview, they will remember a certain story, but on the next one, they may add one. And then you have to figure out where does that one go in relation to the previous one? Or they kind of shift it. So they really had to help me with that. I use their stories to make a point about faith. So they may or may not necessarily be in necessarily chronological order. And I think that was something that kind of surprised me because I'm partially a left-brained person. So, I expect things to be in order and da 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 da. Life doesn't work that way. So I had to kind of roll with that punch. That did surprise me. Other things, other questions? How would you like to hear a reading? Can you raise your hand? Would you like me to do a reading from another part of the book? Hey. All right. So I'm going to do just a little piece here. It's from a chapter called Wilderness Experiences. And it goes like this. May said, you just might as well not even bother to think that you are not going to have to go through anything once you surrender yourself to God. She believes it's really kind of silly to think, I've got this. She knows everyone is still going to have to deal with situations and other things that get thrown at them during their lives. May calls these situations her wilderness experiences. Her first wilderness experience happened before she was old enough to fully understand or process the implications. May had grown up working in the fields alongside the rest of her family. Around the age of 11 or 12, she was told to go work in the house to help the landowner's wife, a white woman, with housework. May found out that the wife was not home when she was assigned to go work in the house. May did not think much of it until one day the husband began touching her and trying to force her onto the bed. To May, the man seemed quite old. As she recounts the experience, she thinks he might have been in his late 50s or early 60s. He pushed her around, grabbed her private parts, and clearly intended to rape her. She later learned that he was incapable of consummating any sexual act. His inability, however, did not prevent him from tormenting and threatening May. She had heard from her mother and others that the man did not believe in God and had no compunction about behaving as he pleased with those in his employ. In his mind, May was there for his pleasure as he saw it. May had to silently live with the fact that he had molested her. May did not tell her parents or anyone else about the incident that time or the next 2 or 3 times it happened. She was afraid to tell her father as he might confront the landowner, and she knew that could lead to the Ku Klux Klan beating or killing him. So she went about her field work and continued going to school. That was part of May's story. Comments? Reactions?
So, Jen, when you think of these stories, and all of the stories has a component in it that you can either relate to or will make others think of their own stories and then come to some kind of a grappling with their story. And I think this is what this book does. It allows you to grapple with your own story and just go through the weeds and the thickets of it. And I think that's what's really good about this book. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Other comments or questions?
Yes, I had a comment. First of all, I just want that chapter was very powerful. I'm sorry that you just read.
Mhm.
I was just curious. what was the process that you had to go through, starting from hearing those stories, those powerful stories, to then, be able to put it on paper and to formulate all of this into this powerful book? And what kind of obstacles did you come across, through your journey in getting it
Mhm.
together?
Wow. Yeah. Um, so after each interview or email, there was always a back and forth communication between me and the person who I was interviewing. But after each interview, almost as soon as I stopped talking, hung up the phone, whatever we were doing, the person left, I began jotting. I jotted notes through the interview, but also finished some more afterwards. Actually, they were all recorded, and as I listened to them, you could hear the clattering of teeth. You heard this all the time. The keys were clattering. So I would have a rough print copy, or not a visual copy of what I just heard. And that would allow me, one, I didn't want to forget anything. I didn't want to miss anything. But then I could go back, I can print it, I could look at it and see where I thought there were gaps or if something wasn't clear to me, because whatever wasn't clear to me became the basis for my subsequent interviews or questions. Um, my goal was to get it right, to get it such that when these individuals read their chapter, they went, oh, I didn't want them to read it and go, oh, I don't know where she got that. Where'd she get that at? I didn't want that. So I really spent a great deal of time listening, re-listening, and trying to refine what I heard in order to make it appear in a way that the individual whose story it is, it was real to them. Um, so that took some time after each one. I can't tell you how many times I read each story, or how many back and forths, or poking and prodding. They were very patient. It was a lot of poking and prodding. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at Pedro. I don't know how many times I was like, Pedro, okay, tell me again. Where did this happen at? When was this? And Pedro he kind of go through it again. And I know at some point he must go, oh my God, is she ever going to get this right? But that's what it took. Um, and I think even at the end, and I'm going to use him just because I was talking to him when he read the chapter, he had to think about it for a minute in terms of, oh, she's using these experiences to demonstrate how faith grew. It's not necessarily a chronological story. But it took a while to actually arrive there. And the other thing I think that surprised me along the way is, so we come through this, and I've been talking to all of the people in the book, obviously, and I kind of forgot they didn't know who else was in the book. It's not like we had group sessions until the book came out. Um, so on one Zoom, for another reason, I think it was me, it was Pedro and Greg Robinson, who's in the book. We were on there on a Zoom together. I said, oh, book people. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? And then I realized, I was like, oh, they don't know who else is in the book. I'm so used to having everybody talking to me, but they didn't know who else was there. So it really was kind of a growth process as I processed information and then tried to turn it into something. I think they call this narrative, nonfiction narrative. So it's based on truth, but it's told in a way that it reads like a story. So people can read and go, okay, that makes sense to me. Oh, I get that. So we always wanted to make sense. Good question. Others? Let's see, I had another one just in case. Oh, I told you guys I had a harder question for you. So for those who are in the book, think about this for a second and let me know. Now that you've done it, knowing what you know, would you do it again? Be honest.
Yes, I would. And I probably would have more material. I know I would have more material. Because I was like, oh, I forgot about that. And actually reading May's story, I was like, I had a similar situation, but I think I buried that because I didn't want to recall it. But when I read a story, it came forward. And I'm like, I remember it. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to start any madness around the family. So yeah, I would definitely do it again.
Yeah, I would do it again too.
Yeah.
What I remember of the process was that it was extremely powerful. I know I cried during some parts where I was sharing with you, because of the emotion that I felt about the reasons or the particular events. But yeah, I would do it again. It served to, I believe, for me, it served to reaffirm faith. You call my chapter "Help," so, and it's very appropriate. I mean, whatever you used, I mean, I know you used our own lives to title our stories, but you did a great job on that part. But besides "Help," which is the title of mine, uh, uh, faith comes to mind when I recall what I shared with you.
I would do it again, Dr. J. And I said that's probably the second time fully telling my story. My friend is on Zoom tonight. My sister friend Shauna Davis. First time I told my story, she had me tell my story, and to me it was like I'm not ready. Telling the story, I think reason I say I do it again because I think every time you tell it, it's a healing. I read somewhere where it said, when you're able to tell your story and not break down, you know you've healed. And so I feel that, if my story can help someone else get through, the same type thing that I went through, and knowing that it was faith that brought me through, then by all means, I will continue to tell my story.
I too, Dr. State, I do it again. Because for what I'm hearing, not only here on this, but on the rollout and those who have read portions, and how the help they've been, the power in the title reaffirms the fact that only scarred hands can heal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the graphic, the hands that's sharing, and what the hands are sharing is that which is essential to living in life. And so our stories have a healing potential. And so, yes, I would do it again, because as I said earlier, in retrospect, when you look back over your life, when you look at what you've been through and some of the things that you've been through, and some of the scars that you bear, the scars are there to help you remember. And the fact that some of us bear even physical scars, that the scar is there, but the hurt's not. The scar is there, but there's no pain associated with that scar. You can remember what happened, and you can tell that story, but you're telling it now differently than if you were telling it during the time that you were going through it.
Right, definitely.
So yeah, I would.
Yeah, just real quick, Dr. J, I'd do it again. Yes, I would.
Too. I would do it again. Yeah.
They're all gluttons for punishment, aren't they?
Hey, doctor, I have a question for you.
Sure.
And this is just from my distant past, where sometimes people don't understand the power of emotional scars, maybe especially guys, we're so used to physical stuff, right? So from your perspective, were your mental scars worse than your physical scars in some facet? And can you describe the facet? I mean, because you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. wow. So from my perspective, in terms of physical versus mental scars from experiences, I think they're both deep, but they're deep in different ways. Um, I can think back to the one story I tell in the book, and I'm not going to tell you all what it was because I don't like to spoil the read, but I can think back to that time now, and at the time it was scary, it was painful, it was confusing. It was my whole life, right? Those feelings were my whole life as I was going through it. So that lasted a while. I mean, obviously now I can talk about it and tell you all about it, but like Pastor said, I don't feel the confusion and the pain now. I can just describe it. Um, the physical stuff heals and goes away. You know? So you do get over it. You remember getting it, but then it heals and goes away. Um, so yeah, I think you everybody scars. You heal. You're going to have a scar, and it is a memory now. It's a memory that is I won't say softened, but interpreted through faith and the lens that you have that you couldn't articulate back in those days. I couldn't have told you all the things I can tell you now when I was going through those experiences in my 20s and 30s. I couldn't speak about it like this because I didn't have that wherewithal. Like I said, faith at 5 and faith at 55 are totally different things. I don't know if that answers your question.
Close enough is your answer, so I can't say it's wrong, right?
Oh gosh.
But Dr. J,
Mm.
the Bible verses. So I just
Mm.
can't remember this. How did you determine the Bible verse? Did you talk to the folks and match it for them, or did you match it to the story? Because now I never got to see most of these Bible verses, right? So when I read the Bible verse, I read the story, and I go back to the Bible verse, and it was like, wow, this is such a connection there.
Yeah, I'm based finding the Bible verse on what I had heard from the person. They didn't see it until after I selected it. Then I would show it to them and said, "This is work." And I don't think anyone changed any of them actually, but it was up to them. I would have found another if they had said, that doesn't really do it for me. But both the title and the Bible verse are something that came to me after I had heard the stories and began to shift through them and try to think about what they meant. And that's how I arrived at the Bible verses. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good questions.
Hey, Dr. J,
Yeah.
this is Joe. You asked people who contributed their stories if they would do it again. I want to say I will read the book again because each of the stories were so impactful. Um, I've read a lot in my life and pretty fast reader and stuff, and I found myself really having to stop at the end of each little story. I couldn't move on right away, and I had to just contemplate what that person had been through. And in some cases, I recognize people I know from Macedonia, and in other stories, I didn't know who it was about. Um, and in both cases, it made a big impact on me just to um, just to grow compassion for, like Pedro said, you go through life a lot of times not realizing what the people around you are going through or have been through. So uh, and and how they deal with those things through faith, I think, was a beautiful, powerful lesson story. So my question is, will you do it again? Will there be volume 2?
Somehow I knew that question was going to pop up at some point. I can't definitively say I would do exactly this again, I may write again, and it will probably be something around faith because this has truly just blown open my fascination with faith and the role it plays. At one point in some of the research I read, there is a piece in the book that talks about the fact that people of faith actually are healthier, they live longer, they deal with issues better, and they're more resilient. So faith is a spiritual thing, but it has physical implications as well. I think we kind of know that just from watching people around us, but faith is fascinating. It just has so many aspects to it, and there's so many ways to express it. I said at the book launch that people of religious denominations think they own faith. Well, we really don't, but we kind of think we do, because people have faith in a lot of different things. Some of which some of us would say, I don't know why they believe that. That doesn't make any sense. But to them, it does. To us, the people who are part of religious denomination, religious spiritual practices, faith is everything, right? And it's a faith in a God, what we believe in. Other people have faith in things that may not agree with us, but it's still a faith. So I guess my bottom line question would be, so what do you believe in? What is your faith in? Well, how's that working for you? So that's kind of where I would be going with other types of faith. So how is that working for? How has that supported you through the things you've been through? But yeah, so back to your question though, Joe, is I don't know what I will write next, but it will probably be, if I do something related to faith.
Well, having read this, I'm certainly looking forward to whatever comes next.
But don't expect it tomorrow, okay? Scott will tell you, she probably needs to sleep for like 2 years. I probably won't, but you know what I mean.
Dr. J, I have a question.
Sure.
What do you hope for you and for others in the book? What do you hope that younger audiences will come away with reading this book?
So I don't know if you guys remember. I remember being younger, 20s, 30s, whatever, and looking at people who are my age, the age I am now, going, what do they know? And you couldn't tell them anything because they knew everything. I would hope that something in the book, whoever reads it will find something in the book that resonates with them. Every story is different. Every story talks about different age ranges. Every story talks about different experiences. So I would hope that anyone who reads the book would find something in there would reach out and kind of poke at them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, have you looked at this part of your life lately? That kind of thing. So yeah, just that something will resonate. That's my hope. Oops. Oh, there you are. You moved. Your square moved. I didn't know where you went. Other questions? Let's see. See if I had another one for you guys. Well, the other one kind of built on what I already asked. Oh, I have one for you guys, you contributors there. So what about the experience of going through this experience and being interviewed and all of that? What will always be special to you?
Repeat that.
So what about this experience? Meaning the interviewing, the going back and forth, the questions. What about this experience will always be special to you? I should say, if anything. I hope something.
What was special for me was the fact that the majority of my family didn't know some of these experiences. And I didn't realize that. I mean, no one really asked me all my journeys, right? So it was great to let my daughter in particular read, the things that I went through. So I think that was the most valuable part for me out of the whole experience, is sharing with my family.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Anybody else? What would you consider special about this whole process? What will always be special?
I think for me, it is telling the story to begin with. I've yet to let family members see it. And honestly, I don't even think Deacon knows that I was in the story. I didn't tell him that I had shared in the story. So I think telling it was the piece, because for me to tell it took me to a different place than I had been before, to share something about myself. And people see you, or you perceive people to see you one way. I'm a counselor by training. I'm a listener. I can do things, I'll participate, but to share personal things is not something that I always do. But I listen to somebody else's story. I'll wrap around what's going on with someone else. I'll assist somebody else, kind of thing. And so I think for me, just that act of the willingness to share and to tell it. And I think part of that is who I was telling it to.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think what was special to me is actually seeing it in writing. You talk to people when you tell your story, but to actually see it in writing. And I'm not sure who brought up the Bible verse. When I opened it and I saw the Bible verse that she matched to my story, I thought she got it. And I think that was what was really special to me, is that you got my story. You put my story in writing for me. I said before, somebody said for me to write a book. I don't have to now. I'm good. Dr. J took care of it for me, because this is all I probably would ever tell of my story in life, because this is the most um, important part of my life, and where I grew in faith. And everything that I went through in my life was because of my daughter. And you captured everything, right? It's only a few pages, but you captured everything in this story, and that was special to me. And I have to say, it's very special in sharing the story with Dr. J.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
What was very important, Dr. J, for me with this is it affirmed for me. And I go back and read it, but it affirms the importance and the blessing of being human. And not to be afraid of being human. And the power that you have to share with other people is your humanity, and to be able to identify with their humanity, because you've accepted your own. That was important for me.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Sure. So I want to, let me ask any other questions before I do this. I want to, I'm going to pull up actually my website for you guys. I want to show you something. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay. So I have a website now, people, and the only reason I'm pulling it up, it is drjsneed.com. And you can see it has several categories across the top here. Home, me, the book, upcoming events, endorsements. I added a blog called Let's Talk. So you can now go in here, and it starts here. The first one was join in the conversation. It's a faith thing, but I'll be posting different topics, probably at least once a week or every other week, that people can talk about. So feel free to go there at any time, or and to look at press and media, where I mentioned earlier, the book launch is now there. You can go there to take a look at it if you're interested, as well as any other media things that have happened. So it's DRJ Sneed. And of course, you can send people there if they want to know where to buy the book. They can just simply touch any of these icons there, and it will take them directly to a place to purchase. So I say that just because I need all of you to push, this book, not because it's about necessarily us or me, but the stories are for everybody, but it's also that the profits from its sale will benefit the programs and services of Macedonia Baptist Church. I think all of us know, the church does a lot of things for the community, in the community. We're not just a church that we keep to ourselves, that we are busy. We're a backpacking program with scholarships and vacation Bible school, all of these things. So this book was also my way to say it's almost like a legacy item, to say something that could continue to always be giving back to Macedonia. So that's the website. Give it a visit.
Hey, Jennifer, can I make one comment?
Mm-hmm.
On the buy button way up at the top like that, it might be a little obscure. It doesn't intuitively seem that way because it's right at the top. And you're saying, well, how could you miss it? But the way the book is positioned, when you open the website, you're sort of not looking up top because it's the book, you know what I mean? It's so graphic that you sort of
But
look down.
you don't have to hit the buy button. You can actually touch Amazon or Books A Million or Barnes and Noble to also buy, and it's also at the bottom. So they tried to cover all areas, top, bottom, and middle, with putting buttons where they're visible, where people could literally, if I touch Amazon, it goes directly to Amazon.
Okay, I went there earlier today, and it was maybe I was in a little bit in haste, but haste makes waste.
Yeah.
Dr. J, can I share what happened with me for where I had, so I was working with a women's committee out of New York City. They were working on putting together a women's program, a women's history program. And I talked to them about the book. And when they had their Women's History Month program, it went to introduce me. Before they introduced me, they were playing the song, Won't He Do It? And then they all held up the book. They had all went on Amazon, purchased the book.
Wow. Wow.
And then they were telling everybody at the program what the book was and encouraged them to also go in.
Book. Nice. That is really nice. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have known had you not shared it. That's great news. Really is. And I think one of the things that I wanted to do is people who have it, or when you get the book, you notice in the back there's a section called Exercises to Grow Your Faith. So I pose questions that people can respond to individually. You could do it in a small group. You could do it in a book club. You could do it in a Bible study, but things to help people kind of reflect upon how they have come through things or how they deal with things. One of the questions in the Bible study piece, because we've been talking about those Bible verses at the beginning, basically it says, so as you've done all this reflecting, what would your Bible verse be? So that's just something to kind of think about as you think about what else is in the book. So I tell you what, I was going to read one more thing. And then if we have questions or comments, that's great. And if not, I think we can probably call it a night. Yeah. So let me read one more piece. Not so long. It's a chapter called But by God's Grace. It seems when we are young, we do not give much thought to anything we cannot see, touch, or feel. As we mature and look back, many events and experiences become crystal clear. After being raised as a Catholic, John was baptized and became a Baptist when he was in his 50s. He now integrates his spiritual understandings in looking back over his life. At 27 years old, Deacon John was a young state trooper in Buffalo, New York. There had been a string of liquor store burglaries. The only description law enforcement had to go on was that the perpetrator was a Black male. John was in the narcotics unit, and because the case involved multiple liquor stores, the state police decided to delve into the case. The Cheektowaga Police Department was also investigating the case, and neither agency communicated with the other. This made for a somewhat tenuous situation. On top of those circumstances, John was assigned to the case from a handful of troopers of color in the entire state of New York at the time. As ironic as it was, a young trooper of color was looking for a Black male. The state troopers developed a strategy to stake out a particular liquor store from the outside and were set to capture the perpetrator. Little did they know that the local Cheektowaga Police Department planned to stake out the same store from the inside. John was dressed in a hoodie with a t-shirt and jeans in his undercover role. The Cheektowaga police thought the suspect had entered the store, and the state troopers charged into the liquor store. Each agency's officers rushed to their assigned positions, ready to bring the case to a close. The chaos in the liquor store was deafening, with men shouting, the bustling of men moving quickly, and the racket of many feet. Suddenly, John in his hoodie with his gun drawn was facing a Cheektowaga policeman with his gun drawn. John is not sure why neither of them fired, as they were trained to do. In the milliseconds that passed, both men knew something was awry, something was off. In the midst of the clamor from the other officers on the scene, both John and the Cheektowaga officer experienced a communal sixth sense. He calls their sixth sense the presence of God intervening on his behalf, because if he and the Cheektowaga officer had not simultaneously experienced it, one or both of them would have been shot and injured, if not killed. That was Deacon John. That's part of his story. Thank you, Deacon John, for sharing that.
You're welcome. And all I can say is God is good. He's been awful good to me and watched over me and protected me many, many times. And that's just one story, but I am so thankful. I am so thankful that he has had a hand in my life and has kept me and watched over me. And I tell you now that the way things are, I'm surely glad I'm retired. I can tell you that.
Oh boy, right. And that's just right. There's another story in there from Deacon John that is just equally amazing. So when you get to it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Any other questions or comments?
No, I'll just add that I'm from the Buffalo area, so I know Cheektowaga. So between Lackawanna, Cheektowaga, West Seneca, he's very lucky because they are some,
right,
the racism big time up there.
Right, right. So I'm gonna ask my husband Scott, who's been very quiet, which is very unusual for those of you who know him. I'm gonna put him on the spot because I'm sure he could tell you all kinds of tales about what it's been like for him as he's gone through me working on this book for how long? You know, he keeps telling me, yeah, when you retire, you won't do these things.
Thank you, Jennifer, for putting me on the spot. The one part of the book that probably was most impactful for me is the comments you made about your husband and how wonderful he was. So, just kidding. The 3+ years that I've watched Jennifer work on this project, she continued to amaze me, not because of her ability to write this book, and I've seen her write many things over the decades, but she is so sincere and cares so deeply about everybody that has been involved in this project. And whether she knows you well and you've been friends for years, or she just met you and got to know you through these interviews, she loves you and cares about your story. And that's her. This is not about her writing her book and her story and let's get it out there and sell it for me. It's all about giving. And so she really lives her faith in God. And so much a part of anybody's life who says, I have faith in God means I love my brothers and my sisters. I am my brother's keeper. And Jennifer is really like that. And it's a beautiful thing to be part of and to witness. And I'm glad the project's over. But I'm excited to see what's next for her also. So thank you.
Yeah. He gets nervous when I don't have a project, you guys, because I start looking around the house and looking at him and looking around the house and looking at him. He's like, oh, you need a project. You need, you need a project. Oh boy. So everybody, thank you, Scott.
Love you.
I just sent out a chat. I love you back. I just sent out a chat that says, you know, you can come back in 2 weeks for the second book discussion if you want to. There's no limitations on how long it could be, how many times you can come. I thank everybody who came, and Wesley, especially good to have you in. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Wesley, before we get ready to say ciao?
No, just thanks for involving me. This was a really great project to be a part of, and I'm happy that people are receiving the book and the cover and everything in the light that it was intended. So I can't wait to get my copy.
Coming. So thank you all. I'll put up the screen that has the sign-in information, but you can go to my website and you'll see that. Share it with your friends. I appreciate so much all of your patience for those who contributed and reviewed and read, because getting a book done is a project for many people. Yes, I did the writing, but I think I had 12 people who read it before it was published and gave me feedback, with Dr. Gresham being that and more. And then, of course, the people who were interviewed, and then your designer, and then the publisher, and the list goes on for a ways. So I really appreciate everyone who played a role in making this book come to fruition. Thank you much. Pastor, you wanna close us out in prayer?
I do believe the words of Minnie Haskins, who you've heard me quote many times, her words can serve as our benediction. And she writes, and I said to the person at the gate of the year, give me a light that I may tread safely into the unknown. That person said to me, go out into the darkness and put your hand in the hand of God, and that will be to you better than a light and safer than a known way. Go in peace, and may the God of all peace go with you.
Amen.
Thank you all
Amen.
so much.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. J. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Dr.
much.
J.
Have a
JR.
blessed evening, everybody.
All
Thank
righty.
you, Dr. J.
Love and hair
Excellent.
grease.
Whoops.
Bye, everybody.
Peace, love, and hair grease.
Oh,
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Throwback, a throwback.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Michael. How are you?
this was really good. Thank you.
Excellent. Glad you made it.
Good night.
Good
Night.
night. All righty. Okay.